snow fell gently over the quiet colony streets. Most people stayed inside their warm homes, far away from the freezing wind and dark alleys, but Caleb didn't have much of a home. Just an old storage cabin near the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was enough for him. He had just returned from collecting parts when he saw something move behind a pile of frozen trash. It wasn't a dog or a small animal, it was bigger. He squinted through the snowfall. That's when he saw her. She was kneeling in the snow, her thin hands shaking as she dug through broken containers and scraps of plastic. Her skin had a strange color, light blue with a soft purplish tint. Her clothes were torn and far too thin for this cold weather. She looked young, maybe in her late teens by human guess. Her small shoulders were trembling badly. Caleb slowly stepped forward. He didn't want to scare her. Whoever or whatever she was, she didn't look dangerous. "Hey, he said gently. She looked up in fear. Her large, glowing eyes locked onto him. She tried to stand but almost fell. Her legs were too weak. "I'm not gonna hurt you," Caleb said, holding out both hands to show he had no weapon. "You'll freeze to death out here?" She said nothing. She didn't understand him, or maybe she did, but didn't trust him. Caleb took off his thick wool blanket, the one wrapped around his shoulders, and slowly held it out toward her. The girl didn't move at first. Then, with shaky fingers, she reached for it and pulled it close to her small body. Her eyes widened slightly at the warmth. "Come on," Caleb said, motioning toward his nearby cabin. "You need to get out of this cold." She didn't answer. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Still, she took a small step forward, wrapped in the blanket, then another. Suddenly, her legs gave out. Caleb rushed forward and caught her just before she hit the ground. She was too light. Her body felt like it hadn't eaten in days. Her hands were freezing cold, almost like ice. "It's okay." "I've got you," he whispered. He carefully lifted her into his arms and carried her back to his small home, inside. The heat was barely enough, but better than outside. Caleb placed her on his bed and added more blankets over her. He lit his small heater and boiled water. She didn't open her eyes. She was still breathing, but very weak. Caleb sat beside her. "Confused and worried, "Where did you come from?" he asked quietly. "Are you from the forest settlements, or not from this world?" There was no answer. Her skin looked too smooth, too perfect, and her ears slightly pointed, small and delicate. She wasn't human, not exactly. But she wasn't like the aliens he'd seen in old war broadcasts either. She looked different, gentle, almost like a child left out in the snow. He gave her warm soup later that evening, using a spoon to feed her. She was too tired to sit up, but she drank the broth slowly. Her eyes fluttered open once, and she looked at him with a confused expression, like she didn't understand why he was helping her. "You don't have to be afraid," he told her. "You're safe now," she tried to speak, just one word. But all that came out was a weak sound, like a whisper mixed with pain. Then she closed her eyes again. That night, Caleb sat in the chair beside the bed. He didn't sleep much. He kept checking on her, making sure she was still breathing. A strange feeling grew in his heart, like he had to protect her. She had no one, just a frozen alley and broken trash. And now, a stranger who gave her a blanket and a warm place to rest. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but he had seen something in her eyes, something lost, something scared. Maybe Caleb thought that's why he couldn't walk away. Cliffhanger ending for part 1. Just before dawn, the girl suddenly sat up in bed, gasping for breath. Her eyes were wide open, full of fear and glowing softly in the dark. Caleb stood quickly, startled. She looked around the room like she didn't recognize where she was. Then, without warning, she whispered something in a strange language and collapsed back into the bed, unconscious again. Caleb sat beside the bed, staring at the alien girl who had just collapsed again. His heart raced. He didn't understand the strange words she had whispered. They sounded like soft music, but he had never heard anything like it before. The small cabin was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater. Outside, the snow still fell gently, covering the world in white. Inside, the warm air felt strange with the weight of silence. He looked closely at the girl's face. Her skin was pale blue with a hint of purple, and her eyes, so large and bright, were now closed peacefully. Her hair was dark and soft, falling over the pillow. The small pointed ears showed she was not human. Caleb had no idea where she came from, but he knew one thing. She needed help. The next morning, sunlight pushed through the cracked window. Caleb was already awake. He had made simple foodsome bread and boiled eggs. He hoped she could eat something. Slowly, the girl opened her eyes again. She looked around, confused. Her gaze settled on Caleb. This time she didn't look afraid. Caleb smiled gently. "Good morning," he said softly. "You're safe here." She didn't answer, but she reached out a small hand. Caleb took it carefully. Her fingers were cold but soft. He helped her sit up. She tried to speak again, but only made soft sounds. Caleb guessed she did not know his language. To communicate, Caleb decided to use drawings. He took some paper and a pencil. He drew a simple house and pointed to it. Then he pointed to her and himself. "Home?" he said. The girl nodded slowly. She looked at the drawings and then at Caleb. A small smile appeared on her lips. Her name, he learned, was Luma. She wrote it down on a small piece of paper. It was the only clear word she could say in English. Caleb spent the day teaching her simple words. Water, food, cold, warm. Luma watched carefully and repeated softly. Though she could not speak well, she learned fast. Her eyes lit up every time she understood something new. Caleb was surprised by how smart she was. Luma also showed him signs of her own language. She drew symbols that looked like stars and strange shapes. Caleb guessed she came from another world. At night, Luma slept in the small bed Caleb prepared. But Caleb stayed alert. He had a feeling they were not alone. Weeks before, he had heard stories about illegal smugglers in the area. They captured aliens from other planets and sold them. Caleb hoped Luma was not one of their victims. His worry grew when strange patrol ships flew low over the colony at night. The ships scanned the land with bright lights. Caleb covered the windows with blankets to hide. One evening, Luma woke suddenly, gasping for air. Her eyes were wild. She sat up and looked scared. Caleb held her hands to calm her. "Who are you afraid of?" he asked. She pointed to her back. Caleb reached and gently lifted the collar of her shirt. There he saw a faded mark, a small brand, a symbol burned into her skin. It looked like a circle with strange lines. Caleb's blood ran cold. "That means they marked her," he said softly. "The smugglers, they treat aliens like property." Luma's eyes filled with tears. She whispered the same strange words from before. Caleb didn't understand, but he could feel the pain behind them. The next day, Caleb took Luma outside. Carefully, he wanted to show her the forest near the cabin. The trees were tall and covered with snow, and birds chirped quietly. Luma looked around with wonder. The air smelled fresh and cold. Caleb pointed to the sky and said, "Safe." She nodded, but her eyes searched the horizon as if expecting danger. Suddenly, a drone flew low over the trees. It was small, black, and fast. Caleb grabbed Luma and pulled her behind a big rock. The drone scanned the area. Its red light moved slowly over the snow and the trees. After a tense minute, the drone zoomed away. Caleb let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "We must be careful," he told Luma. "They are looking for you." Back at the cabin, Caleb checked their small supplies. Food was low. Winter was harsh, and it would get worse. Luma sat quietly, her hands folded. Caleb wished he could do more. But he was just one man. Still, something inside him burned with a new hope. He had saved her once. Maybe he could keep her safe. That night, Caleb heard faint noises outside. Footsteps crunching in the snow. He looked out the window but saw nothing. He knew their time was running out. The next morning, Caleb decided to teach Luma how to defend herself. He found an old hunting knife and showed her how to hold it. Luma was quick to learn. Her eyes shone with determination. "Stay strong," Caleb said. She nodded, gripping the knife tightly. As the days passed, Caleb and Luma built a quiet life together. They shared simple meals, practiced words, and watched the stars. But Caleb never forgot the danger that followed her. Cliffhanger ending for Part 2. One night, Luma woke suddenly and sat up, staring at the door. Caleb asked, "What is it?" she whispered in her strange language. "They come." Outside, the wind howled louder. The cold wind blew through the trees outside Caleb's small cabin. Inside, the heater hummed softly, filling the room with warmth. Caleb watched Luma as she sat quietly on the floor, tracing patterns in the dust. Her blue-purple skin seemed almost to glow under the dim light. Her large eyes held a strange sadness, but also a quiet strength. Caleb felt a deep wish to understand her, to help her find peace. For days, Luma had stayed silent about her past. She rarely spoke, except for a few simple words Caleb had taught her. But her eyes told stories, stories of pain, fear, and hope. One afternoon, Caleb sat beside her with a small notebook and pencil. He decided to try again. He drew a simple star on the paper and pointed to it. "Star," he said gently. Luma looked closely at the drawing. Slowly, she reached for the pencil and drew a similar shape. Then she added lines and circles around it. Caleb leaned closer and smiled. "Your home?" he asked. Luma nodded, her eyes shining. She traced the drawing with a trembling finger. That night, after Caleb had prepared food, Luma finally spoke more clearly. "They took me," she whispered in broken English. Caleb's heart tightened. "Who took you?" Luma looked down. "Bad men, smugglers, they capture my people. To sell." Caleb reached out and took her hand. "We will find a way. You won't be alone." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of trust. Days passed, and Caleb worked hard to learn more about Luma's people. She showed him symbols from her world, strange shapes that looked like stars and planets. Caleb guessed her home was far away, maybe beyond the stars humans knew. Luma shared stories through pictures. Her people were peaceful and loved nature. They did not want to fight. But the smugglers had broken their peace. Caleb felt a deep respect for her. She was brave to survive and gentle despite everything. One evening, while Caleb fixed the heater, Luma sat quietly, watching him. Suddenly, she pointed to a small box on the table, an old music player. Caleb smiled and pressed play. Soft music filled the room. Luma's eyes widened. She smiled, a real smile. For the first time, the music brought warmth to the cold room, and to their hearts, but the danger was never far. One night, Caleb heard a noise outside the cabin. It was quiet, but clear footsteps in the snow. He looked out the window. A dark figure moved near the trees. Caleb grabbed a small flashlight and stepped outside. The cold bit his skin, but he didn't care. The figure vanished into the woods. The next morning, Caleb found strange tracks near the cabin. They were fresh and led toward the forest. He showed Luma. She shivered and pointed to the sky, then to the tracks. "They watch," she said. Caleb nodded. "We must be ready." He began teaching Luma how to use the hunting knife better. She learned quickly, moving with grace and focus. One afternoon, Caleb and Luma walked to a small frozen pond near the cabin. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows. Luma looked at her reflection in the ice. Her face was soft but tired. Caleb sat beside her. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. She looked at him, her eyes full of trust. "I'm here," he said simply. Luma reached out and took his hand. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the trees. Caleb stood quickly and looked toward the sound. It was a patrol ship. Low in the sky, shining bright lights. Caleb pulled Luma back to the cabin. Inside, they watched as the ship scanned the area. Caleb felt a chill not from the cold, but from fear. "They come for you," he said. Luma nodded, her hands shaking. That night, Caleb lay awake. He thought about Luma's people, about the smugglers, and about the future. He knew they had to act soon. Cliffhanger ending for part 3. Just as Caleb was about to tell Luma his plan, she whispered in a soft voice, "I must go home." Caleb looked at her, surprised. "Home? But it's not safe." Her eyes filled with determination. "I must try." The cold wind howled outside Caleb's cabin as Luma sat quietly by the small heater. Her eyes were distant, filled with worry and determination. Caleb watched her carefully. For days she had been restless, speaking less and less. Tonight she finally broke the silence. "I must go home," Luma said softly. Caleb shook his head. It's not safe. The smugglers are still hunting you. Luma looked up, her large eyes shining with resolve. I can't hide forever. My people, they need me. Caleb understood. He saw the fire inside her, the need to return to her home. No matter the danger, the next morning, Caleb began preparing for the journey. The mountains near the colony were cold and harsh, but they offered a chance to escape the patrols searching the town. He packed warm clothes, food, and a small hover sled. He had repaired months ago? Luma watched silently, wrapping the blanket Caleb had given her tightly around her shoulders. Together, they left the cabin, stepping carefully into the deep snow. The ride was slow and difficult. The hover sled hummed over the white ground, leaving tracks behind them. The cold air stung their faces, but neither complained. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the sky grew darker. Thick clouds covered the stars. Luma looked at Caleb. Thank you, she whispered. Caleb smiled gently. We're in this together. After hours of travel, they reached a small cave hidden by snow and rocks. Caleb lit a small fire to warm them. Luma sat close, her eyes reflecting the flames. For the first time, she spoke more about her homeworld. My people live on a peaceful planet, she said. We care for the land and sky. We do not want war. Caleb listened, fascinated. He could see why she longed to return. Suddenly, Luma's face grew serious. She touched the brand on her back. They took me, she said. Captured to sell, I escaped, but many did not. Caleb's heart ached. I will help you get home. We'll find a way. Luma nodded, grateful. The next morning, they prepared to leave the cave. As they packed, Caleb noticed something strange: small footprints around the entrance. Fresh footprints. Someone was here, Caleb said, worried. Luma's eyes widened. They follow. Caleb checked the hover sled. We must be faster. They sped down the mountain paths, trying to lose any followers. But the snow held signs, tracks of boots, deep and fast. Luma gripped Caleb's arm. They will find us. Caleb tightened his jaw. Not if we are smarter. That night they stopped in a dense forest. Caleb set traps, simple but clever snares made from ropes and rocks. Luma watched and learned quickly. Suddenly they heard voices, heavy footsteps approached. Caleb whispered, hide. They slipped into the shadows as two masked figures appeared. Carrying weapons, the men searched the area, their flashlights sweeping the trees. Caleb's heart pounded. One of the men stepped into a trap. A rope tightened around his ankle, making him fall with a loud crash. The second man shouted and raised his weapon. Luma acted fast. She grabbed a fallen branch and swung it hard. The man stumbled, surprised. Caleb jumped out and tackled him to the ground. A brief struggle followed. Caleb fought with strength and skill, holding the man until he was still. Luma stood trembling but proud. We won, she whispered. Caleb nodded, but kept his eyes sharp. More will come. After the fight, Caleb examined the men's equipment. One had a small device that looked like a tracker. He pulled it apart carefully. Inside, a red light blinked. This was in your arm, Caleb said. Luma nodded. They use it to find me. Caleb felt anger rise. We must remove it. Caleb worked gently to remove the tracker from Luma's arm. She winced but stayed strong. When it was out, Caleb crushed the device. Now, they can't track you this way, he said. Luma smiled faintly, hope returning to her eyes. But Caleb knew this was only the beginning. The smugglers would not give up easily. They needed a new plan, a safer way to reach Luma's people. Cliffhanger ending for Part 4. As they prepared to leave the forest, Caleb's communicator beeped suddenly. A message appeared on the screen. Warning, hostile forces detected nearby. Caleb looked at Luma. They're closer than we thought. Luma's hands clenched the blanket tighter. We must keep moving. The cold air bit sharply as Caleb and Luma pushed further into the mountains. The snow was deep, and the wind howled through the bare trees. The hover sled hummed softly beneath them. Carrying their small pack of supplies, Caleb glanced over at Luma. She was wrapped tightly in the blanket he had given her, her eyes scanning the white landscape with a mix of hope and fear. We must go higher, Caleb said. The patrols won't follow us this far, Luma nodded. My people live beyond these mountains. If we can reach the relay tower, maybe we can send a message, Caleb smiled faintly. He didn't understand much about alien technology, but he trusted Luma's knowledge. The climb was slow and difficult. The sled struggled against icy patches and hidden rocks. At times, the wind threatened to push them off the narrow paths. They stopped for brief rests. Huddled near small fires, Caleb built with careful hands. Luma helped by gathering dry twigs, her fingers nimble despite the cold. During one break, Luma spoke softly. "Thank you for saving me." Caleb looked surprised. "You don't have to thank me. Everyone deserves kindness." She smiled, a warm light breaking through the chill around them as night fell. They found shelter in a narrow cave near the mountain's edge. Inside, the walls glowed faintly with strange crystals, casting gentle light on their tired faces. Caleb pulled out some rations and offered them to Luma. She ate slowly, her strength returning. "Tell me about your home," Caleb said, settling beside her. Luma's eyes reflected the crystals as she spoke. "It is a place of peace and beauty. Forests stretch for miles. The sky is filled with two suns. My people live in harmony with nature." Caleb listened, imagining the distant world. Suddenly, Luma's face changed. She touched the scar on her arm and whispered, "The smugglers. They took many." Her voice was soft but filled with pain. Caleb reached out, taking her hand. "We'll find a way to stop them." Luma looked at him with trust. "You are brave." Caleb smiled, feeling a new strength inside him. The next day, they continued their journey. The sky was gray, heavy with snow clouds. After hours, they saw the old relay tower standing tall against the mountain backdrop. It was covered in ice and snow, but still looked powerful. Luma's eyes shone with hope. "This is where we send the message." Caleb nodded and helped her climb the icy steps. Inside the tower, old control panels flickered weakly. Caleb watched. As Luma touched buttons with care, she pulled out a small device from her pack and connected it to the tower's main console. The screen lit up, showing strange symbols and codes. Caleb asked, "What message are you sending?" Luma looked serious. "A call for help. My people must know I am alive." She pressed a final button. A soft beep confirmed the message was sent. As they waited for a response, Luma sat close to Caleb. Her eyes were full of emotion. "You saved me," she said quietly. "You are the first to care." Caleb felt a lump in his throat. "I did what anyone should do." Luma smiled faintly and looked at the sky through the icy window. Suddenly, a deep rumble shook the tower. Caleb stood quickly, outside, through the frosted glass. They saw a massive ship descending from the clouds. Luma gasped, "They have come." Caleb moved closer to her. "Who is it?" Luma's voice trembled. "My people!" But something is wrong. Cliffhanger ending for Part 5. The ship landed nearby, its doors opening slowly. Shadows moved inside. Caleb tightened his grip on the hunting knife. Luma whispered, "We don't know if they are friend or foe." The massive ship stood tall and silent on the snow-covered ground, its smooth surface reflecting the cold gray sky. Caleb held his breath, watching the doors slowly open with a low hiss. Shadows moved inside, but he couldn't see who was coming. Luma's hand found his, gripping it tightly. Her eyes were wide with fear and hope. "They are my people," she whispered. "But I do not know if they come to help or to take me away." Caleb nodded slowly. "We will face this together." The first figure to step out was tall, wearing a heavy suit of armor that gleamed despite the dull light. The helmet hid their face, but their movements were calm and deliberate. Luma stood up slowly, stepping forward. "I am Luma," she said clearly, her voice steady. "I sent the signal." The armored figure paused, then spoke in a deep voice that echoed in the cold air. "Luma, you have been found. Return with us." Caleb felt his grip tighten on the knife, but he stayed still. Another figure stepped forward, holding a small device that scanned Luma from head to toe. "We have tracked you for weeks," the figure said. "You are to come with us immediately." Luma looked at Caleb, her eyes searching for support. Caleb stepped beside her. "She is safe here." The armored figure turned to him, voice cold. "This is a human." You have interfered with our mission. Caleb met their gaze without fear. She is not a mission. She's a person. Luma took a deep breath. I escaped because I wanted to be free. I do not want to return to those who hurt me. The leader's voice softened slightly. Your people are worried. They believe you have been captured. Caleb shook his head. You don't know what happened to her. She escaped from danger here. Luma looked at Caleb and then back at the leader. I trust him. If he is not welcome, then I am not. The group fell silent. The tension hung thick in the cold air. Finally, the leader nodded. We will not force you, but you must come with us for your safety. Luma smiled faintly and took Caleb's hand again. Caleb felt a warmth spread inside him. Against all odds, they had stood together. The ship's doors opened wider, inviting them inside. The interior was bright and clean, with walls glowing softly in blue and white. Luma led Caleb through long corridors filled with strange technology. Caleb was amazed but cautious. They reached a large room where several beings like Luma stood, waiting. Their skin was the same pale blue with purple tones, and their eyes held kindness and concern. Luma ran to them and they embraced. Caleb watched quietly, feeling both joy and distance. One of the beings, older and wise-looking, stepped forward. Thank you for saving Luma, they said to Caleb. Caleb nodded. She deserved a chance, the elder smiled. Your kindness has changed many things. Luma looked at Caleb and whispered, You gave me hope. Caleb stayed on the ship for several days, learning about Luma's people. They were peaceful explorers seeking friendship with other worlds. The smugglers who captured Luma were outlaws, hated by all. Luma and Caleb's bond grew stronger. They shared stories, dreams, and laughter. Caleb realized he had found a new home, one not on Earth, but among friends who accepted him, but not all were happy. One day, the ship's commander approached Caleb with a serious face. There are those who distrust humans, he said. Some believe your presence endangers our mission. Caleb nodded. I will prove otherwise. Luma squeezed his hand. We will face it together. Cliffhanger ending for Part 6. As the ship prepared to leave, alarms blared suddenly. A warning flashed. Unknown vessel approaching rapidly. Caleb and Luma exchanged worried looks. Alarms echoed through the ship's corridors, loud and urgent. Caleb and Luma stood side by side, watching the glowing screens that showed a fast-moving vessel approaching them. The ship's commander turned to Caleb. This is unknown. We must prepare for possible danger. Caleb clenched his fists, but stayed calm. Whatever happens, we face it together. Luma nodded, her large eyes steady. I trust you. The approaching ship came closer, its design unfamiliar and sharp. It did not respond to the signals the crew sent. Tension filled the air. The crew prepared defense systems and soldiers took their positions. Caleb felt a mix of fear and determination. He had never been in space battle, but he was ready to protect Luma and her people. Suddenly, the unknown ship stopped at a distance. A message came through, translated quickly by the ship's computers. Human male aboard, the message said. Explain your presence. Caleb stepped forward. I saved Luma's life. I am here by her choice. The message paused, then added, If you harm her, you will face consequences. The crew looked at each other, surprised by the warning. The commander relaxed slightly. Luma stepped forward and spoke loudly. I choose Caleb. He saved me when no one else would. Her voice was clear and strong. The room grew quiet. The leader of Luma's people appeared on a large screen. Their face was kind but serious. Caleb, you have shown great courage and heart. Many did not believe a human could be trusted. But your actions speak louder than words. Caleb felt a warmth rise inside him. I only did what was right. The leader smiled. You are welcome here. The unknown ship turned away slowly. The danger passed. Caleb exhaled deeply and looked at Luma. We made it. Luma smiled softly. Because of you. In the days that followed, Caleb and Luma worked to build bridges between humans and her people. There was much to learn and many challenges, but together they faced each one with hope and courage. One evening, under the glow of twin suns visible through the ship's windows, Luma took Caleb's hand. You gave me a new life, she said. A chance to be free, Caleb smiled, and you gave me hope for the future. They stood together, looking at the stars beyond. Ending, Luma wrapped the warm blanket around both of them, the same blanket Caleb had given her when they first met. Cold and lost. In that moment, they knew kindness could change worlds, and together, they would write a new story, one of trust, friendship, and hope.